Tonight, we shall continue going over the management of a service dog in the home, and we are talking mostly about socialization today. And some of that socialization has to do with desensitizing our dogs to things that might normally make them reactive, whether it is something that you intentionally taught them to be reactive about, maybe something that was in their history that they're reactive about. And you know what? Dogs do have adrenaline that spikes. It's a survival mechanism, but for dogs, because they're predators, if there's like a leaf that blows by, sometimes their adrenaline spikes and they want to like go get that leaf. But a lot of dogs, and in fact, the vast majority of dogs have been bred by us, like intentionally selected to be vocal because it would be really useful, maybe not with all our security cameras and our technologies, but you know, in years past, it would be really useful to know if someone was approaching. So having a dog that it like had a vocalization and they're barking when someone is approaching, whether or not it's aggressive or not, like just that initial like, oh my gosh, someone's here and I need to tell you all about it. My Pomeranian has a tendency to do that. It is genetics. My German Shepherd has a tendency to do that. That is genetics. I appreciate it when my German Shepherd does it, but I don't appreciate it when my Pomeranian does it. So, and that's just my viewpoint on it. But really, like they were bred to do this and like through all of these generations to act a certain way, but service dogs should not be reactive like that. So we're going against the grain when we want a dog to not bark. And one of the major reasons that we select the breeds that we do, which is most typically Labradors and Golden Retrievers, is because we want a dog that is not going to be as reactive and they're going to be friendly toward everyone and everything. I often use the example of a Golden Retriever or a Labrador meeting a robber at your door and inviting them in and saying, let me show you where the china is. We're so glad that you're here. And my German Shepherd wouldn't do that. I don't know at what point she would be friendly, maybe never. My Pomeranian would probably have an alert bark. We're working on that. I'm going to show you how to do that. Just it's good to have this base knowledge in case your service dog ever had issues where like barking popped up. Then we be friendly, but we need our service to not vocalize, not to be reactive like that, and to be friendly. And I will tell you right now that we are not going to place you with a service dog unless it does not have a tendency to do that, unless we've seen that this is a controllable situation, so we can have a quiet dog. But when they're going through handler training, it is a pretty stressful time. Just imagine that you are going to be meeting someone else, your best buddy, who is your trainer, is like handing the leash over to someone else and they don't know what they're doing yet. And so they're trying to communicate, but it just doesn't make a lot of sense. And so there's not a lot of trust there right away. We start working on a bond between you and your service dog, but they have to see over a period of time that you're trustworthy and you're going to handle situations for them and you're going to tell them what to do. They're learning like all the rules, like this is okay, this is not okay. And guess what? It's the same thing that the trainer was allowing or not allowing to have happen. And then all of a sudden, like they're getting in the stranger's car and where's my best buddy? Like, where's my trainer? And then they're going to stay at your hotel or your Airbnb and they are really discombobulated. We weren't able to sit down and explain to them in English, hey, like you didn't know it, but your destiny has just come to fruition and you are meeting your true best friend. And it's going to be a beautiful thing and you are just going to love them and they're going to give their all for you and you're going to give your all for them and just go with the flow. We can't do that. So they have to learn over a period of time that this is okay. And so when all of that adrenaline has spiked, they're starting to feel hypervigilance, which is a normal survival mechanism. So you have to be aware of that. And there's certain things that we're working them through to make sure that these good behaviors and these very decent reactions or lack thereof are continuing throughout the process. But we do definitely see an increase in hypervigilance and sometimes vocalization when a dog is going through handler training, and not just the 2 weeks of handler training, but also after they go home to see you. I mean, that's another huge change. Some of the dogs are going to be on an airplane flying with you for the very first time that they've ever done that. And it's just one of those difficult things where we prepare them as much as we can in service dog training, but we don't have the ability to, and no organization does, to take every single service dog on a flight before they go with their recipient. So they have that kind of stressful thing happening, and the recipient is nervous because the trainer is no longer present every day. And while you don't have anyone looking over your shoulder, sometimes you can feel a little bit wobbly about that, and like trying to remember all of those steps. So your responses and your cues, everything about your reinforcement is a little bit delayed, and then they're going into the new environment. And you know what? Most of the time, you are not a direct neighbor to the region that you're getting your dog from. Some of you are lucky enough, and some of you, I mean, that's why you pick little angels, is because there's someone right next to you. But they're often going to a new state, and there's new sounds like cicadas. I didn't know what that was in California. And now they're like everywhere. Everything feels different, weather's different, sounds are different, smells are different, the neighborhood will be different. The activity in the household might be different. There are different animals. I mean, I could keep going, but I hope I've painted a picture for you of why you could experience some issues with sudden reactivity when we don't expect it to be a lasting issue, but we're not going to be terribly surprised when it pops up now and then. And I want you to be prepared to work through it. In handler training, you have the bonus of working with the trainer who is most experienced with that dog, and they know that dog inside and out. That's one reason why we wouldn't have a dog available in New Hampshire, but then have it shipped to California to do handler training, or a dog available in California and then have it shipped to Texas and immediately do handler training with a new instructor, because I don't know the dog very well that just came from one of these other regions. And so you want to be able to work with the person that really knows your dog in and out. They know their personality. They know what makes them tick, all of their quirks. And they can tell you, this is what you will experience with your dog most likely. I mean, animals are unpredictable, myself included. You never know what I'm going to say next. But we can guess based on history. So like, you know that I'm going to ramble on and ramble on, from history. This is what I do. But they'll tell you exactly what to expect with your dog and how to work your dog through those things. Like, your dog's going to respond better to a lot of deep pressure therapy because it's rewarding not just to the recipient, but also to the dog to have that cuddle time. Or you might have a dog that is going to appreciate having some petting and some cuddling, or you might have a dog that's going to respond better to a lot of treats that are coming in, or maybe lots of watch me's. So they're going to be able to tell you what works best for your dog. Now, when, of course, we're placing you with the dog, we're not placing you with a dog like my Pomeranian or like my German Shepherd or like the majority of the dogs that you already know and have at home, or that your neighbors have, or the dogs in the neighborhood. You're getting a different dog. It is genetically predisposed to act a certain way. And we do rescue dogs that are like between 1 and 2 years old, sometimes from shelters. We will sometimes adopt older dogs from breeders, but most of the time we're getting those dogs into our program when they're little puppies. And so what we're testing for is genetic disposition and propensities. The breeders that we're getting the dogs from, or if we are breeding the dogs ourselves, we're doing something very similar to puppy culture. If you want to Google puppy culture, it will take you down a very fun rabbit hole where you get to learn all about the proper way to raise a puppy, which involves introducing new stimulus all the time. Like every day you introduce something new. Like you're introducing a tarp. You put a tarp in the puppy pen. You put an empty pool, like a little kiddie pool in there. You put some balls in there. You put like a pot and pan in there. You hang a mobile. There's just so many different things. But one of the things that is not as commonly done with the socialization is suddenly opening up an umbrella in front of the dog. Pots and pans, it is a more common thing that we see happen with breeders, is that they're banging around dog bowls, which sounds a lot like pots and pans. Like every time they're about to feed puppies, they make a lot of clanging around, dropping things on the ground on purpose because something really awesome is about to happen. So instead of the puppies like running for their lives when there's a scary sound, they are learning, or they're being conditioned to be excited and interested about that sound and to come forward because food is about to happen as a result. So the pots and pans is not always indicative of a genetic predisposition, but the umbrella almost always is, because most breeders don't just open up an umbrella really suddenly. And I have some videos that were taken not by our staff, but by some breeders that are donating dogs to our program. And so I'm going to play those for you, and I'll explain a little bit about it. I just thought it would be nice to have a visual to see some of the genetic predisposition of the dogs that we are selecting for you. And in one of the videos, it shows some of the litter mates don't have the genetic predisposition to be a dog that we would want in our program. That's a good dog. So this is a 7-month-old Labrador that's being donated to our program. He is heading over to the East Coast in the middle of next month. He's going to be so fun. This one is not the same dog. This one is the mother of some of the puppies that you'll see temperament tested in a little bit. Is that the same one? I can't tell. Might have been. Okay, here are some doodle puppies. There's a lot of puppies in this shot. Let me show you the ones that we're actually getting. These two right here. Aren't they cute? They're so adorable. They are Bernedoodles. They're both boys. They're going over to the East Coast on the 1st. So they're about to start their little journey. We have a dog training service, someone that I've met and that I trust, and he's going to pick up those puppies and drive them to Nettie's door. Nettie is one of our trainers out in New England.
Need everybody over here. Ready? Hey.
So you can see that this puppy, that puppy recovered, the one that's still in the shot. The other one, the black and white one, didn't care from the beginning that it happened. I'm going to play that again for you. It is not abnormal for there to be a startle response like what you saw in the gray and white puppy. Like something startling is happening. We can't deny that. It's whether or not they are like running away. Some of them run away and they piddle. Some of them never come back. Some of them are shivering. Some of them lie down. Some of them whimper. Some of them bark. I had a Labrador puppy attack the umbrella before, and I was like, nope. And guess what? As he grew, I just kept seeing, it was one from our own breeding program. He wasn't like scary aggressive, but he was like, I'm gonna get you. Like a bully almost. And he just always acted that way. And so he ended up being released when he was about 3 months old, because we just saw like, this is not exactly what we're looking for. Let's see what else we've got in here. This is the mother of the doodle puppies. So we're getting temperament tests of all the genetics, right? Not just the siblings, but we want to see how the parents do. She does not care. probably going to play for a minute. Let me find that again. Here's
What do you think about
another
it?
one.
Well, come here. Come here. You're funny. Didn't really intentionally mean to.
So cute. She does not care. The breeder is correct.
You're not too scared.
And this one is going to show different Labrador puppies, and it's a really great way to do it. Like the one breeder that has the turf yard, that was a little hard because you can't see where the puppies went, like how they're acting after they kind of like run off of the shot. This one, the puppies, you can see them running into the kennel building, and they're clearly distraught by like what happened. But the one that we're getting is the puppy, the little black puppy that is closest to the breeder's legs. And so this is how she helped us to select which puppy has the right genetic disposition for us. See those ones like hightailing it? That one's kind of like slow. And that black puppy that's walking forward is the one that she's selected for us based on temperament. And the way that that puppy responds to everything else that happens is exactly, it just coincides with this particular test. Those yellow puppies also did really well, but they already have adopters. So we're doing the black one. She's very, very kind to donate these puppies to us. She knows that her puppy could not have a better life than being a service dog. Some of them took off again. And that one that's still there, that's the winner. Not the yellow one, already taken. I'll show that again. And she said it was interesting because she does bang the bowls around before feeding time, but those pots and pans, like they sound different, I guess, because the puppies took off anyway. Or maybe she doesn't always bang them around outside in the kennel. So anyway, hope that gives you a little visual of what we're looking at. So we already have puppies that are not prone to be very reactive in the first place, but now it's our job to do some desensitization and some socialization. So I'm going to go over some more socialization. And one thing that I would like to say is that socialization, I think for the most part, is vastly misunderstood. So we need our dogs to feel comfortable with varying stimuli, but this means we control socialization so it is at a low level of stress at best, and it never causes trauma to the dog. So another way that I explain that is that we are brainwashing the dog or tricking the dog into thinking that nothing in life will ever hurt them. Like, here's a low level stressor, and then we build on it and make it a little more stressful, and they don't even realize that it's getting more stressful because we started with something so low key and we just built on it, but nothing ever hurt the dog. And the reason I think that socialization is so misunderstood is because if you go, like, you have people saying like, oh, I'm going to take my dog to the dog park and have it because it needs to be socialized, or I'm going to let my dog greet other dogs on leash, like I'm going to go to the pet store, I'm going to socialize my dog. Well, if that dog was attacked, which it has a very high likelihood of happening in a dog park, or if you're letting your dog greet other dogs on leash, and the dog goes through a traumatic experience, you have done the exact opposite. And you have given your dog the experience to think that other dogs will hurt them. And that can cause a lot of issues, and they don't always recover. I would say that they do usually recover, but sometimes they just don't. So we have to control our bubble of the world, stress, but working with them, it's conditioning them to take on more and more, which is why we do neurostimulation with very young puppies. So like I start doing neurostimulation with 2-day-old puppies by putting them on a wet washcloth which they don't like. It's not hurting them, I promise, but they're like, it's uncomfortable. I wouldn't say that it's as bad as if my son squirted me with a super soaker. It's not something like that extreme, and I still don't like it. It didn't hurt me. But I didn't like it. I usually scream about it because it's so shocking. But the puppy doesn't like that low level of stress, and they learn how to kind of control the situation by just crawling off of it. Management of the situation is ensuring that you're putting, like I said, putting the dog into safe situations. So no dog parks ever, or areas where dogs are off leash. We had a situation that I didn't expect to see happen where we had a dog go to live in England. And in the neighborhood that the dog went to, or the recipient was going to, it's cultural just to have your dog off leash always. So, like, there's dogs in pubs, there's dogs out in front of shops just sitting on the sidewalk. There's dogs, like, people like literally open the gate and let their dog go on a walk, and then it comes back. People are driving differently, thankfully. They're very narrow roadways. I'm imagining cobblestone. It looks like really romantic. I don't know if that's actually true, but this is what I'm imagining in my head. And that was a very hard situation for a service dog to go into. Fortunately, the dog didn't ever encounter any dogs that were aggressive, and it could be that the dogs are just so used to being out with other dogs, like, I don't know, they learn how to deal with it. But the dog really wasn't approached that often by the dogs that were uncontrolled off leash. But in general, I tell you and our recipients, don't have your dog somewhere where dogs are going to be off leash. We had handler training here in Texas a couple weeks ago, and we were about to take the dog for a walk outside of the recipient's Airbnb, and randomly there were 3 dogs running down the street, and they had gotten out of someone's yard. We spoke to a neighbor, and they said that's definitely not normal to happen around here. And when you are scheduling your handler training, if you are going to be getting an Airbnb, regardless of the region, you do want to make sure that you have a fenced-in yard space of some kind. The dog case does end up being an area where a dog is out. But we decided not to go on a walk that day since the dogs were running around outside. So we chose another activity. There could be some situations where a recipient unfortunately lives in a neighborhood where there are loose dogs out pretty regularly. And that, or even, I don't want to say like pretty regularly, like most of the time, but even some of the time, if that's a regular occurrence, I wouldn't feel comfortable with you walking your dog in that neighborhood because you can't control that other dog. And it only takes one time for that to go south pretty quickly. I also like to make sure that I can keep people from swarming the dog. So, like if you just were to walk into an elementary school or a park where there's a lot of children and you can't control the flood of kids that are coming over to pet the dog, like if they're so young that you can't say, oh, no, then that might not be the best situation to put the dog into. Now it's still different. Like I would much rather have a swarm of preschoolers than an off-leash dog. I'm hightailing it as soon as there's an off-leash dog. I'm getting out of the area as soon as I can. So here are some examples. And I know there's going to be some repeats in this. No meeting other dogs on leash or at parks. When I'm walking inside of a building, and you'll get good at this too, I'm listening for the sound of another dog around the aisle. Christina is joining us, who is a recipient. And I know, John is going to be familiar with this already, but like you listen, you get used to the sound. Sometimes I'm totally fooled and it's someone walking with a key ring, like jingling from their belt. And that sounds like a dog tag rattling around, but I'm listening for that just to make sure there aren't any other dogs in the building. Sometimes it's going to be a service dog and it's not, I still don't want my dog to meet that dog. I do not trust them. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. In quotes. I scan the parking lots in neighborhoods for off-leash dogs. Um, I also will, like, if I'm walking through a parking lot, this happens a lot in Texas, which is really unfortunate, where people will leave their dogs in their cars. They are cracking the window, but at least they're cracking the window. Sometimes the window is completely rolled down. In Texas, sometimes there's dogs in the bed of the pickup truck. So if I'm walking between cars in a parking lot with a service dog, I will not walk between cars if one of them is a truck because I'm worried that the dog will be in a dog bed. And I also don't walk past any cars where the window is cracked. So I will, it doesn't take that long to find one where the window isn't cracked, and I choose to walk between there because that would be really scary, even if it didn't get your dog or get you. If it just like barked and like kind of like lunged and sticked its head out, that's going to be pretty scary for your dog. And I can almost guarantee you that it's going to take you a while to get your dog comfortable walking between narrow spaces, especially if their car's in a parking lot, because they have a bad experience from that. Another example is that when you're going through handler training, we work with you and explain to kind of stay back a little bit when elevators are opening. So you go push the button and then you back up a little bit because you want to give space for the people coming out of the elevator, but sometimes there's a dog inside the elevator. And I did have a recipient go home with a dog, and they lived in a dog-friendly apartment complex. And it was a very sad situation where they were just waiting outside of the elevator, waiting for it to come up. And one of the neighbors was inside on his phone, and he had two huskies on retractable leads. So he's already not paying attention, and they got retractable leads. And that door opens, and her dog's just right there, and those huskies mauled this Labrador. And the Labrador never recovered from it. It just set off like this on their behavioral issues, which you'll see if your dog exacerbate everything, and it can affect them in areas that are completely unlike the trauma that they had. Interactions. So are going to be good on this, but sometimes kids will like just come out of nowhere and like come and hug your dog. And we do test the service dogs with this. We do have children, and we ask them to be like very cuddly, like all of a sudden, like, okay, I need you to come in and you do this and you do this. And we're watching the dog, and we have a lot of safety measures in place, but we have tested the dog in a lot of situations. But if there is a situation where it's a scary human interaction, it's something that can last. So we had a different recipient who was, it was some major city, and they were chased by a man who was not thinking very clearly. I think that he was intoxicated to some degree. And he started chasing them, and the recipient was running, and the dog was running. And that dog did recover, but like there was no physical contact, but that was still really scary. And of course, the recipient's also really scared. And so the dog's feeding off of that. And it took months to work the dog past a whole bunch of issues that came up from that. And so another example is that you want to avoid situations where you're like, okay, that's going to be totally overwhelming, but you do want to introduce new things, but introduce them with care. So some things that like we take for granted that dogs don't necessarily is costume characters, really large balloons or mylar balloons sometimes, and your dogs are introduced to balloons and mylar balloons, but like really big ones, just something they haven't seen before, right? Inflatables possibly could be scary, like those inflatable like attention grabbers of like that long, funny inflatable guys like waving your hands like there's a sale, come in now. I see that, and so does the dog, and the dog's like, what? Yeah, exactly like that. Museums with animatronics. So we went on a field trip a while back, and I think you guys saw it, where we went to a museum here in Texas, and there were a lot of dinosaurs that were moving and growling and stuff. So we introduced the dogs at a distance, and got closer and closer once they realized that there's no harm here. Like they are designed to make human children scream and run, but the dogs ended up being okay. Think about zoos and how different some of those animal experiences are going to be. So maybe introduce your dog at a distance. Like don't be like feeding the giraffe and having your dog right here. I don't think that's a good idea. Farms could be one. Trains, buses, and flights. So we're very intentional about making the experience as positive as possible. We can also do counter conditioning and things, but we're just trying to give the dog a good experience right off the bat. There are trams at the major airports. And so like one thing you have to look for when you get your dog on a tram is that those carry-on luggage, little tiny suitcases that have the wheels, as soon as that tram takes off and it like, whew, it really gets you, those suitcases go, whoo, and they go wheeling down into like some neighbor's leg. Make sure it's not your dog that it's rolling into because that could be an unfortunate experience. And that wouldn't be good. I just want to give you guys a little warning. There's a storm outside. I'm pretty sure Christina warned me about it earlier. And so I can hear some thunder happening and some rain. If the internet goes down, I apologize in advance and we will just catch you next time and finish this conversation.
As it turns out, that video was cut short because the internet did shut off. So I wanted to add to this video by showing you a clip of one of our trainers working a dog through fear. And this is a good time to point out that whatever stress there is for your dog, whatever fear there is for your dog, it's their perception of it. It's not your perception. So different dogs are going to have different reactions. They all have a different history. They all have different sensitivities. So whatever that stress is, we have to meet the dog where they're at. In this case, the dog is afraid of a stuffed animal in a store. And the stuffed animal to us looks cute, but we can't say, well, this dog should not be afraid of this item because we aren't the dog. We have to look at it through their eyes. And for this dog, they see that this creature has a face and it's very still. It has a smell that's not normal for a living being. And so they're clearly distraught over it. But this is just a really good example. Take the next couple minutes here just to see how the trainer slowly introduces the dog to this and does some counter conditioning to make the dog comfortable.
Good. Good. Sit. Good. Down. No. Good. Stay. You're okay. Good girl. That sounds making the noise. It's just the stuff go on. You're okay. You're okay. Good girl. If something gets you. If something gets you. Good girl. Good girl. Good girl. Stay. Good girl. Touch. Good girl. Touch. Good girl. No, you're okay. You're okay. Yeah. Good girl. Stay. Stay. You're fine. Stay. Stay. Good girl. Heel. Good. Good. Down. Good girl. Yep. Good girl. Sit. Stay. Watch me. Good girl. Touch. Are you okay? Good girl. Come. Good girl. Sit. Good girl. Down. Good girl. Give her a baby that treat. Stay. Good girl. Good girl. Good girl. Sit. Good girl. Down. Good girl. No. Watch me. Good girl. Touch. Good. Sit. Good girl. Down. Good girl. Good girl. Good girl. Sit. Good. Down. Good. Sit. Good. Down. Good. Good. No. Touch. Down. Good girl. Touch. Good girl.
Now, that was a really good example of how really taking your time and looking at the situation through the dog's eyes is going to end up in success. But I don't want this situation, this specific scenario, to paint a picture of a situation that could go awry for you. So right around this time of year, we have a lot of Halloween and even Christmas decorations that are coming out in the stores. And it's going to be tempting when you're walking through those areas of, Walmart or Home Depot or Lowe's when you're working with your dog to expose your sweet dog to some novel items. But the problem with the Halloween items is that they are meant to be scary. And some of them have motion sensors that will set off a object jumping out of a cauldron or a box or from behind a tombstone. There are so many of these gadgets where, if you're walking up to someone's house going trick-or-treating and all of a sudden a broom starts to move and it cackles like a witch. So what humans find to be entertaining because we find it amusing to be scary, dogs are not going to look at it the same way, and you can end up having a completely adverse effect, and it can go very, very poorly for your dog. I would say if the situation was extreme enough that your dog might need to be released from training because they never recover from it. I can say for sure that one time when we were just driving through a campground right around Halloween, it was chaotic and there was so much activity. There were so many costumes. There were inflatables everywhere. And some of them were, I guess, harmless. Different, yes. And is it okay to expose our dogs to inflatables and, costume characters and things of that nature? Yes, absolutely. We need to make sure that they're going to be comfortable around those items, but we have to be absolutely sure that there's not going to be anything or anyone jumping out to scare, because it's going to have that really bad reaction for the dog. So for that reason, I do avoid Halloween sections. I also highly advise everyone not to take their dog with them trick-or-treating, and possibly even consider not bringing the dog to costume parties, Halloween parties, because people are, out to scare others for our amusement, but the dog is not, it's not going to take it that way. I was going to say not necessarily take it that way. I can guarantee the dog will not take it that way. So I always leave a dog home when I'm going trick-or-treating, whether it's a pet. Certainly if it's a service dog, I'm not going to do that. I know it's not necessarily time for fireworks, but fireworks also are very, very scary to a dog. So again, what we find to be amusing and impressive and awesome, the dog does not take it that way. If you just look at the statistics of how many animals are hurt or lost, whether they're wild animals or domestic animals, the 4th of July, it's an incredible and astounding and sad number. So we have to really be cautious and try to expose our dogs to these things, looking at it through their eyes, either exposing them to these situations at a distance, and then gradually getting closer, or trying to make sure that they don't hear or get exposed to the fireworks at all. When our team goes to Disneyland every year for Epilepsy Awareness Day, we are always leaving before they have their fireworks display, because we're keeping, our biggest priority and keeping our thoughts on the dogs and making sure that they're not nervous. And just always be looking at it through the eyes of the dog. Put them as the priority, or all of the training and effort that you've put into them will really be a waste. Hopefully this video has been helpful to you, and you've gathered some different tools to help either continue in your dog's socialization and desensitization, or if you're just getting started, I know that this is a really good foundation for you.